Hi everybody, it's Rhiannon from the Epsom Bakehouse. Good morning, how are you? Thank you if you're joining in live today. It'd be wonderful to see you. We're going to be talking today how to stop your loaf splitting. So if you're making a loaf, it doesn't have to be in this tin shape. If you're making a loaf, sometimes as it bakes you get a split along the side or underneath. And you might not have wanted that, and you might be wondering, why on earth did that happen? Well, today we'll be talking all about how to stop that happening, and I'll be doing a little demonstration. So, talking about that in a few seconds, if you would like to hear more about all of these bread making tips and when to join me live, you can join my free newsletter, and you get lots of top bread making tips, recipes and more. So I'll put the link in the comments after I finish this live. And actually yesterday I emailed out about a guide I'm starting next week called the 12 Days of Christmas Baking. So I don't know about you, but I absolutely love this time of year for baking. And perhaps you'd like to think about baking something delicious for Christmas, but you're thinking, oh my gosh, I just don't have time. I don't know what to bake. I'm not even sure if I've got the right ingredients in or equipment. And what can I do to start? I'll be going through tips and tricks and all things like that over 12 days of Christmas baking, which is starting next week. So if you'd like to join in, all you need to do is join the newsletter, and as I say, I'll pop a link in the comments below this live once finished. And also, if you want to hear more about all of my online live baking classes, and that includes some delicious festive specials like stollen, panettone, and you can come along and learn with me step by step to bake those on my live classes at the end of November and early December. Again, I'll pop a link in the comments, and it'll be lovely to have you join a live class and bake along with me. You don't need any previous experience, and you get to make your dough along with me step by step and watch how it should transform into one of those festive specials. So today we're going to be talking all about shaping a loaf so that it doesn't split. As I said, you don't want to get a crack. You can see here, this is what's called the shoulders of the loaf, just where it's risen above the tin. And sometimes it can rise too quickly and you get this kind of risen top with a crack here. Or perhaps if you've baked this on a baking tray rather than in a tin, you might get a crack underneath and the whole thing open up. Now that's not really going to have too much detriment to your loaf. It will still taste amazing, you'll bake some delicious fresh bread, but you might find that it doesn't rise quite as well in the oven, and you lose some of that height because it's cracked and gone sideways. So there's a couple of things you can do to help stop your loaf splitting. Now, as you can see, I've baked this loaf in a loaf tin like this. And these are great, especially if you're perhaps even just starting out baking bread, because obviously these sides of the tin do contain your dough whilst it's rising. And that can help when it's baking. And what is happening in your dough is that as it's rising, those gluten strands in the dough are stretching and holding your dough in place. So let's just have a look at some risen dough that I have here. Already made, already risen. And we'll take a bit of that out. So once your dough has risen, you're going to start shaping it. And as mentioned, this dough, you can see here, it's deliciously soft and stretchy. And that stretchiness is coming from those gluten strands. Now, you can see as I've just turned this out and cut it, you get this cut side, there's lots of little holes, there's no real kind of shape to it. And if you just popped that straight into your tin, just like that, it wouldn't really rise into much. You can see the top isn't smooth, it's all jaggedy. Those gluten strands have not been kind of stretched into any kind of smooth shape. You might be able to see that's not really going to rise into a nicely domed top. So as well as potentially using a tin if you're kind of early on in doing this, the key thing to help your dough and your bread from splitting, one of the key things you can do is to actually shape your dough. And so that involves stretching and pulling out your dough and really building up some tension. So you can just see, even by those quick shaping there, I've got a much smoother top than when I've done nothing. So you get that nice smooth top on your dough, and that will help your dough rise and it will help contain. So you've kind of stretched those stretchy gluten strands over and around the top of the loaf, just by stretching it into place. And all I did was fold the dough inwards, roll it together. And you'll get that much nicer, smoother top. And that will help. You're using those gluten strands as like the structure and the scaffold of your bread, and in stretching them around the top of your dough and getting that nice, smooth top, you're much less likely to have your dough spring apart. There's much less weak spots in that dough. All that gluten's been stretched over the top. So a couple of things there. So if you've ever had a problem where your dough has split apart in the oven, just bear that in mind. Potentially try using a tin initially to just contain the sides and really help the dough rise upwards. But also, more importantly, get shaping your dough really tightly till you get that nice smooth top on your dough, and it's really contained within the shape that you are trying to make. So the loaf shape, so obviously that now could just go straight into my tin, and you're going to let it rise, and it will maintain that shape as your dough rises for the second time, and also whilst it's in the oven and baking. So I hope that was helpful. Do let me know if you have any questions that you would like answered on these bread making lives. As mentioned, if you'd like to hear more about when I'm going live and the kind of bread making tips that I share, you can join my free newsletter, and I'll pop the link into the comments. But otherwise, it's been lovely to chat with you today, and I'll be back next week. As I said, we'll be starting our 12 days of Christmas baking, so maybe have a slightly more baking and festive baking theme next week. But I'll be back next Friday morning to go live again and chat with you then. Take care. Bye.